videos and about the subjects that we discuss here. So without further ado, I'm just going to let you hear a little snippet of this interview between Gareth A. Davies and Tyson the Gypsy King Fury, and I'll give you a few of my thoughts after, so just listen in.
And I'm injury free, no one's got a chance with me. Just like Billy Joe, no middle or super middle in the world has got even a chance with him when he's active. Just like no heavyweight's got a chance with me when I'm active. But the one thing I say is he needs to be active. And the one thing he's not been is active, just like me. When I'm active, good old cliche with me and old Billy Joe Saunders is, we're never active.
Yeah.
We've had more inactivity in our career than we've had activity. We've had more time out the ring than we've had in it. And if you just use me for a minute, yeah, I've had years and years and years and years of inactivity. And again, when I go to fight Joshua in a minute, I will have been out the ring for 18 months again.
Yeah.
And my previous stint before that was 2.5 years. So it's not good preparation. I'll say this one thing. Me and Billy Joe Saunders, we are not journeymen. We are not in boxing for a payday. We're not in boxing to make some numbers up and get a few million quid extra in our bank. Not interested. We would rather have zero money and win than take fights what we're not ready for. And active, just like me. The difference in me after just under 3 years out the ring against Sefa Seferi to even 2 months later against Pianetta, and then to Wilder, and then a few months later to Tom Schwartz. Look at the difference in active fighter than a non-active fighter. And then again, Wilder's 2 match. Look at the difference from the Wilder 1 match to an active fighter who was match fit. It's going to be him active, 6 months only out the ring, 5-6 months, and me inactive, 18 months out the ring. So it's another one up the old Gypsy King's aisle, isn't it? Take that one and put it in your pipe and smoke it. But you know what it is? I'm that far in front of them all. Doesn't matter. I'm that far ahead, leagues ahead in boxing ability, heart, grit, determination, punch power, balls. It doesn't matter how much head start I give them, I'll always catch them down the straight.
Yeah, so interesting little interview there. I mean, I'm just going to focus on that specific little section that I've cut out there, as I think it tells us a lot of interesting information. Yeah, with Tyson Fury, many people have said that this might be him making excuses for in case he loses the fight to Anthony Joshua. This stuff that he's saying here might be some sort of excuse or him giving himself some sort of out. And yeah, it's interesting. I think ultimately we will never really know. Only he himself will sort of know whether he's making an excuse or whatever. Because he must, you know, he's an intelligent guy. He must realize that he's stepping into the ring with a guy who's definitely a threat to him. And so he can't, you know, he's not naive enough to say, Joshua's rubbish, or what. He might say that. He might say things like that. But I think deep down, obviously, he knows he's facing a guy who is going to be a threat. Whether he likes it or not, this guy is going to be a threat. So it's a lot of it is, yeah. What he said was, me and Billy Joe, we've got this thing in common where we're both inactive. We've both been out of the ring more than in the ring, and that is true. Tyson Fury was out for a number of years after his amazing win against Vladimir Klitschko in Germany, where he just took the game away from Vladimir Klitschko and just more or less whitewashed Klitschko, and Klitschko just didn't know what to do with him. So he had that tremendous win against Klitschko, but then he didn't capitalize on it. And when he talks about this inactivity, the years of it, while it is true, yes, he was inactive. The the inactivity was a lot to do with it. It was basically, I would say, self-inflicted, because it was he himself who, okay, he wasn't embraced by the public, and I guess look, it would be hard to deal with. He didn't get the love and adoration a lot from the public. I think boxing people respected it when he won, but the general public didn't and stuff. So it's because of certain things he said, but a lot of his inactivity there and at that time and after it, a lot of it was self-inflicted, and I think we've got to take that into consideration, because it was him who, this, he went off the rails with the drugs and all this sort of stuff and the partying, and he just went into kind of a crazy phase of his life where he just went wild. He just lived a wild party lifestyle during this inactivity. So as much as we can say, yeah, I was inactive for these years, I think at the same time, you still have to say, right, a lot of that was down to me, and a lot of that was down to what he was doing, the partying and the wild life he was living. So that's a major reason for the inactivity, and all this mix up with the wild boar and all that stuff didn't help. And he said a few things about Billy Joe Saunders as well that I think, yeah, you can tell that he's definitely a friend, because he said Billy Joe, again, he needs to be active, and if he's active, he'll box Canelo all over the ring or punch him all over the ring and things of that nature. And it's like, I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't care what he does. Again, he'll give Canelo problems, but when you're talking about punch all over the ring, don't think so. I think, obviously, as he's a friend of Billy Joe Saunders, so that's more the friend side of him than the objective guy speaking. But yeah, so he said there's no heavyweight that can touch him and all this, which is fine. Good to have a bit of confidence. But then it's kind of a mixture with what he said, because it's like, in one breath he's saying, yeah, I haven't been active. Joshua's gonna have only 6 months out of the ring. I'm gonna have 18 months. So it's like he's gonna have a year more than what Joshua's been out of the ring. So yeah, that's gonna be about right by the time they get the fight, because Tyson hasn't had any warm-up fight or anything. He hasn't had any activity. And he said, yeah, so Joshua's gonna have that. He didn't call it an advantage, but for my words, I would call it, that I would say that was what that was the direction his words were sort of leaning towards. That this guy, he, as a fighter, I've already said I need to be active. This guy's been more active than me, so I guess in my view, that's him trying to say, right, so he's got that advantage. But then in another breath, he goes on to say, but I'm so good, I'm so much better than these guys that I can give them a head start. They can have the head start of being more active, and I will still catch them up on the straight. So it's like he's giving kind of a mixed message, because in one breath he's saying, yes, activity is so important, and me and Billy Joe, we need the activity. We don't care about the money, blah blah blah. We don't want a few extra million quid in our bank and all this business. And then which I think I kind of, yeah, that's something I find hard to believe in a way, because these guys, okay, he's quite humble in the way he lives, but he's still a guy that's driven around in Ferraris. He's still a guy that lives in a big house, and both of them, they drive Lambos, Ferraris. They do, they do like money. They wouldn't be in prize fighting trying to get to the top level if they don't like, but they do like a bit of money. So I mean, I get what he's saying, that the win is the most important thing, but when it comes to the money, what he said about we'd fight for enough, we'd rather have no money than and a win than have some money and a loss. And I get, yeah, that's the pride talking, but ultimately you can't seriously mean that, because we all need money to get by. So I don't really buy that one. But yeah, so it goes on, and he's talking about inactivity, but then he's saying, well, where I'm that much better than these guys that it doesn't matter what head start they got, it doesn't matter how active they've been, I'm still gonna come back and beat them. And I think in his mind he definitely does believe that. So that's why for me, when it comes to whether he's using these things as an excuse or not, I am quite firmly on the fence, because I see he is kind of giving himself an out, but at the same time he's also bigging himself up and saying, well, I'm so much better, it doesn't matter. So it's like, I think it's a bit of both. I'm kind of on the fence. And yeah, it's one of them where we will never really know 100%, because I don't know what's in his mind. And I think another reason why he says things like this about the inactivity is the same reason he talked about Deontay Wilder's punching power and how Deontay Wilder can beat everybody else except for him. And I think it's because it's because with Tyson Fury, I believe he needs to feel under pressure, and he needs to feel like the other guy's got an advantage, or he needs to feel like he's the underdog, and he needs to feel like that in order for him to perform at his best, and he needs to feel like that in order to have sort of maybe a psychological edge within himself that makes him work harder, and that helps him to go in there and to win the fight. I think he says these things about inactivity because, excuse me, he needs to feel like there's something against him. He needs to feel like, I think the talk of for example, the fact that most people consider him to be the favorite, and there's a lot of people saying, he's going to knock Anthony Joshua out, and Joshua couldn't beat this fat guy, so therefore he's going to get bashed up by Fury. I think that sort of stuff, while yeah, boosts his ego, I think at the same time he might be actually finding it hard to deal with being the favorite, because I think he along with many boxers, I think Tony Bellew was like this. There's a lot of boxers like this where they much prefer to be seen as the underdog, and the one who's not favored to win, and in order to get their best performance out. And I think that's what this is partly a case of too. With the excuse, I'm kind of on the fence, but I think what he says about the so-called excuses with the inactivity, I think he's using that to give himself a bit of an edge, and to feel like he's under a bit of pressure so that he can sort of perform. Because I think you can see even with the Klitschko fight, the difference between how he behaved in the sort of press conferences and stuff for the rematch versus how he was when he was the challenger. When he was a challenger, it was a lot more focused. It was still wind-ups and mind games and stuff, but he was a lot more sort of focused and tunnel vision. The other one, he was just sort of messing about. And I think that's all it is, really. It's his way of getting himself up for the fight. Him talking about the inactivity and seemingly making excuses, I think it's just his way of getting up for the fight and giving himself a bit of an edge. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And until next time, it's MKO Pugilism over and out. Catch you on the next one.